Hey there, welcome back to another Voltage Modular tutorial. In this video, I'm really excited because today we're going to be exploring using Voltage Modular to control hardware synths. This is a really exciting way to interface with your favorite hardware synthesizers and even extend their capabilities by adding extra LFOs, adding a sequencer if your synth doesn't have one, and just about anything else you can imagine, and it's a lot of fun. Before we get into the video, be sure to subscribe down below for more Voltage Modular tutorials, and if you have a suggestion for a future video, let us know down in the comments. This is the patch we'll be using today, and as you can see, you really don't need all that much to get started. If you have Voltage Modular Core, it comes with a suite of MIDI modules that open up a whole new frontier for ways to play with your synthesizers and control them. In this case today, what I've got set up is sending some pitch and gate information out of Voltage Modular, as well as some MIDI CC messages to control different parameters of my synthesizer, all running from this patch here. First up, we have the sequencer. Now, my Novation Peak is a lot of fun and I'm a really big fan of it, but one thing it doesn't have is a sequencer, and I think that can be a really fun way to play with synthesizers. So I've got this matrix sequencer module here, which is really cool and really powerful. It's got an internal clock and it has a whole bunch of different ways it can play. It can play forward, backwards, it can ping pong, it has snake modes, it can play randomly, and it's just a lot of fun to experiment with. The real question here is, how are we going to convert all this CV stuff into MIDI so that my Novation Peak can understand it? And that would be this next module here, which is the CV to MIDI module. If we take a closer look at this module here, you can see we have inputs for pitch, gate, velocity, bend, mod wheel, and aftertouch. And if I hover over the module, you'll see that I've got this wired up as follows. We've got the pitch coming from the quantizer, which is receiving the pitch from the quantized output of the matrix sequencer. And then the gate is coming from the X gate of the matrix sequencer going into the gate input. That is then converted to MIDI so that my peak can understand it, because we're then going to send that MIDI information out. To do that, all we need is this MIDI out module. You can see I've plugged the MIDI out of the CV to MIDI to the MIDI in of the MIDI out, and then I've selected my MIDI device. In this case, this is my audio interface, so my audio interface is going to send MIDI out into the Novation Peak, and we're done. Now, in order to hear this, we just need to wire it up. In the audio sources here in the I/O panel, the left and right for channel 1 are actually my microphone, so I plug this into 2. So 2 left and 2 right are coming from the Novation Peak into the audio interface. I've got that wired back out to the main outs. So if I turn up my Novation Peak and play the sequencer, we should hear it. And there you have it. We have Voltage Modular sending MIDI data out to my peak, and my peak is now playing. Now, for some added interest and secret spicy sauce, I've got this really cool module here, which is CV to MIDI CC converter. What this does is it allows us to use CV to send out MIDI CC messages. In this case, I've tied this controller to a couple of different parameters to control the wavetable position, the oscillator sync, the filter cutoff, as well as the blend of the second oscillator, which is tuned up a fifth. If you find the manual for your synthesizer, I've got this open here, you should find some kind of MIDI implementation chart or MIDI parameter list, and in this case, I could find what CC message is tied to what control. So here I could see my wavetable shape is going to be 12, and so on for all of the parameters that are able to be controlled with MIDI CC. The CV to MIDI CC converter allows you to set 4 different targets. In this case, I've got those wired up here, and I added some extra LFOs. With that being said, these LFOs feed into the CV input, so then that's going to be converted to MIDI. All we need to do to utilize this is take the MIDI out and plug it into the MIDI in of the MIDI out module, and away we go. In order to fine-tune things a little bit here, I've got an attenuverter module to control the depth of the modulation, and then I've also got a scale and offset module here to apply some offset to this LFO, which is targeting the filter cutoff. In this case, it was closing off the filter entirely for the peak, which I don't really want, so I use this to offset, and that way I can determine the minimum value that the filter will hit. All these LFOs are free running, but you can see why this is exciting, because if your synthesizer maybe only has 2 LFOs, but you have a MIDI CC implementation, you could utilize this to add as many LFOs as you want to control as many different things as you want. With all that wired up, we should be able to play this once more, but hear a lot more modulation for the wavetable and all the other parameters we set up with the CC here. So let's give it a play and see what we've got. As I'm sure you can imagine, this is a lot of fun, and we could even bring this back into Voltage and then process the audio with other modules. So instead of just running directly out, we could wire these into maybe a delay, and then we could have that delay feed into a reverb module, and then we could process all these things even further. We'll wire it back to the outputs. Let's maybe adjust the reverb and delay settings here slightly. We'll make this a nice ping pong delay. really long delay time. Let's play this one more time, and now we should hear the peak being played, and then that audio then being processed by Voltage Modular again before being fed out to the final output. And that's really all there is to it. I think this is a lot of fun, and I think it's a really great way to breathe some new life into your favorite hardware, to push it beyond what it's maybe traditionally capable of doing without having to sit there and program a lot of complex automation or do anything like that. And I think that does it for this video. So thanks for watching, and for more information on Voltage Modular or to try it out for yourself today, you can head over to cherryaudio.com.